Syria nowadays is the center of the world's attention. The country's rich culture and heritage is in danger, and Syrians find themselves in the face of the ugliest warfare that humanity has ever witnessed. So what is really going on in Syria? Mass media assumes it's a civil war, which was triggered by the so-called Arab Spring. The Arab Spring is a brand which was invented to represent the free will revolt of people in the Arab world against their oppressive governments. Politicians and influential media adopted this brand and promoted it intensively. The campaign used elements of exaggeration, hate, anger, and grudge to paint an image of what people want. This resulted in the collapse of governments in Tunisia, Libya, Yemen, and Egypt, while other countries like Iraq, Lebanon, Sudan, and Palestine were already preoccupied with their internal problems. Ironically, while republics in the Arab world collapsed, monarchies that enjoy wealth in addition to US military presence were unaffected by the breeze of the spring, with the micro exception of Bahrain, where things went briefly out of control. In Syria, the brand did not have the same success, and the makers were not happy about it. An unprecedented flow of financing, arms, and intelligence turned the free will peaceful revolt recipe all of a sudden into an armed insurgency, sponsored, publicized, and controlled from abroad. The upgraded campaign mainly targeted uneducated Syrians in poor areas and villages with misleading information and promises. Borders of Turkey, Jordan, Lebanon, and the occupied land became a first-class terminal for foreign fighters coming from all over the world to join the holy war on the Syrian land. In addition to building refugee camps to complement their bad intention, Turkey and monarchies of Jordan, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia, under the wing of the United States, established training camps for insurgents and foreign fighters for the war against the Syrian state. Mass media resorted by all means to emotional manipulation using data from anonymous sources and fake eyewitnesses to influence the public opinion and turn it against the Syrian state. Speaking in the name of Syrian people, the West, led by the United States, with the assistance and funding of regional monarchies, invested in the human tragedy and held conferences and special events to embrace the armed groups, which they labeled opposition. At the same time, the United States and the European Union imposed more sanctions on the Syrian economy, in parallel to merciless attacks on the Syrian currency to suffocate and blackmail the ordinary Syrian citizen. Armed groups occupied entire neighborhoods and villages across the country and used civilians as human shields. They seized factories and oil fields, smuggled antiquities and heritage across the open borders. The Syrian infrastructure recorded billions in losses and destruction. Public institutions, universities, schools, and antiquities were also a primary target. According to estimations by the US Pentagon in 2014, there are around 2,000 operating armed terrorist groups in Syria, and as you have seen, they are not coming from thin air. For decades, Syrians enjoyed peace and stability, and terror has become part of their daily life. Up until February 2015, 17,186 Syrian civilians, 1,867 among them are children, have died only by suicide bombing, random mortars and shells. Those include parents heading to their jobs, newborns, students at their schools and universities, and many others. Due to the US and European Union sanctions, Syrians are living without power for more than 16 hours per day, and the Syrian pound has lost more than 70% of its original value. Syria residents are unable to travel for business or for tourism to most of the countries that label themselves as friends of Syria due to impossible visa restrictions. The UN estimates the number of Syrian refugees at 4 million. While it's investing heavily on media campaigns, weapon sales, funding and training, the United States hosted only 500 of them. In their war on Iraq, the United States and its allies killed more than 1 million Iraqis over false pretexts. Do you see a pattern here? This is not a civil war. This is constructive chaos, proudly made in USA.